Welcome, everybody. It is Tuesday, the 4th of December. I can't believe it's already December. Just about a month until we see what the game is this year for Destination Deep Space. Today we have an expert who's a university student at the University of Waterloo, Michael Medora, and we're going to get to Michael in just a minute, but I just wanted to remind everybody that, as always, the webinar is being recorded. It'll be posted on the First Canada YouTube channel. I will send that link out to everybody in the webinar, and I will also send it out through Facebook for those people that were not able to make it, so they can join us as well. If you do have any questions along the way, please feel free to type them in the question box. If you have questions because you're watching this from the YouTube recording instead of live at 7 p.m. on December the 4th, if you want to send me an email with a question at pkeenan@firstinspires.org, I will get back to you as soon as I can. And if I don't get back to you within like a couple of hours, and then I've forgotten because I'm feeling my years now, and if I don't do things right away, sometimes I forget about them. So I will not feel the slightest bit offended if you email me more than once because I didn't get back to you in a timely fashion. So please feel free to contact me. And please take a look at the webinars from the past year. There might be something there that is important to you. Certainly the one from Derek Murphy that dealt with Andy Mark and the information ordering stuff from Studica is a timely one as we head to the build season. So without much more delay, we're going to hear about Robot in 3 Days and React, which I believe is an acronym, at the University of Waterloo from Michael Medora.
Yeah.
So take it away, Michael.
Hi. All right. So I'm a student at the University of Waterloo. I was on the Ask Experts webinar last year talking about Robot in 3 Days with some organizers of Robot in 3 Days Ontario. And so I study mechatronics engineering at the University of Waterloo, like a lot of first alumni who go on to do robotics engineering, among other things. And while at Waterloo, I noticed a lot of issues with first alumni engagement in university. And so I founded and I currently direct UW Ri3D, so a Robot in 3 Days event that occurs at Waterloo. And new for this year, we've started a new team called UW React. And so both of these are two ways of engaging first alumni at UWaterloo, and I'm excited to talk about them, especially with relation to first alumni and anyone here in the conversation who is graduating next year or graduating in 2 years and looking to stay involved in FIRST. That's what I'm here to talk about. So first, I'm going to talk about what Ri3D is. I'm sure some people on the webinar might know what Ri3D is, but just really quickly, so Robot in 3 Days, or Ri3D in short, is a 3-day speed build. It's usually done by first alumni, and it's an event where we build an entire FRC robot in 3 days. And so during that process, media is created about the robot, and that media is released to the world, and that's the event in a nutshell. It's a great way to engage first alumni, and I'm going to talk about that on the next slide. So the reason why Ri3D is a great thing, traditionally, Robot in 3 Days is talked about as for the community because it's a way of supporting FRC. So especially as a low resource team, there are a lot of teams that don't have the resources of what we might consider powerhouse teams. And the goal of FIRST, as Frank Merrick talked about during the No Bag Day announcement, is to raise this competitive floor and help as many teams as possible do as much as they can. And so Ri3D tries to help do that. And so as a low resource team without a lot of time and a lot of money, one of the most important parts of FRC is prototyping. And so unfortunately, if you don't have a lot of time or a lot of money, you don't have the resources that are required to prototype all these different designs that you might have for whatever the challenge is going to be in deep space. And what Robot in 3 Days does is it gives you alumni who are experienced in in FRC and have done it for 4 years or mentored for 4 years in that. And they will give you these prototypes on the line so that you can see the ideas that you so desperately want to try, but you just might not have the resources to do. And you can compare and contrast concepts. And once you do that, you can really nail down what prototype works best for your team, even though you may not have the resources to do that. Now, another reason, and the reason that that Waterloo has decided to take on Robot in 3 Days as an initiative and React now is the issue with first alumni in post-secondary education. And while it might be a little tough for anyone who is still in high school and still doing FRC to think about, once you enter post-secondary education, a lot of people realize that there's first alumni and engaging them in university. There is no challenge quite like FRC in post-secondary. Even at Waterloo, which has a huge assortment of student design teams for people to join, there's nothing that really matches the fun and exciting 6-week challenge of FRC. And so as a result, first alumni groups are a great initiative, but they don't do everything they can to give you that same experience. And so as a result, what tends to happen is that first alumni lose touch with FRC once they go to university. I've seen a lot of my friends do this, and I'm sure most people might know someone who used to do FRC but don't anymore. And that's a problem because that makes events tough to staff with volunteers. Once someone loses touch with First, they don't want to volunteer. And like First always says, volunteers are the lifeblood of First competitions. And whether it's mentors or event volunteers, without them, we can't run these events. And so what Waterloo has decided to do is focus on maintaining first alumni engagement and making sure that first alumni continue to stay involved with this incredible program. And so what Ri3D and React do at Waterloo, and what we're trying to spread to more universities around the world, is to keep first alumni involved and help our events keep staffed with alumni volunteers and help teams have mentors who are still passionate about the program. And so that's the purpose of Ri3D at Waterloo. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about Robot in 3 Days Waterloo. So last year in 2018, we ran our pilot year. So this was for the Power Up year. We successfully funded, and we were able to build 2 robots with over 50 students. It was an incredible time. It was 72 hours of just fun enjoyment, and it was a really tough challenge. It let our students experience FRC all over again, and just the whole experience felt like we were back in high school building first robots, and it's honestly an incredible feeling. Last year, we were able to focus on creating media for our robots. We made design videos that talked about the design of our robots and talked about our various prototypes. And while our content wasn't as great as some other Ri3D teams, we did our best with the resources we had. And I was really proud of what we were able to accomplish. And so this year in 2019, we're focusing much more on alumni involvement. While we're still going to be building 2 robots and creating media this year in Robot in 3 Days, and what we hope more universities across Canada and perhaps the world will do is keep alumni involved throughout their post-secondary education. So we're turning UWRA3D into more of a hackathon-style event. It's going to be a 3-day event with much more capacity available than just 50 students. We're going to be not creating first robots, but other first related activities that, because we can't host 200 people building first robots, we can host other people doing first alumni activities. And so we're really excited to be bringing it back. But Robot in 3 Days isn't perfect, especially for first alumni involvement. It's a great time, and it works well for university students who want to focus on their studies because, as students, we all have an education to focus on, and FRC is great, but we all know that it's not good to put too much time into FRC because you will lose track with work or education. And so Ri3D works really well for that because it's just 3 days at the beginning of the year, and there's really no issue with um, ruining your studies. And so it works great in that sense, but it doesn't give you this ongoing team activity that FRC is. And so what a lot of us who did Robot in 3 days at Waterloo did was we brainstormed ways to bring FRC or an FRC related event back to Waterloo for first alumni that would not just be 3 days, but year long. And what we came up with was what I'm going to talk about, UW React. And so UW React is a year-long student design team. We're a brand new student design team at Waterloo, and what I hope a lot more universities will end up doing. But we have what are called student design teams, which are groups of students that are given engineering resources by the university and by corporate sponsorships, and they complete engineering challenges. It's a great way to continue to do engineering activities during your education. And so what we decided to do was make a first robotics related event. So we started UW React, which is an acronym for Robotics Engineering and Autonomous Controls team. And so we're a student design team building fully autonomous FRC robots. So as a lot of you know, during the 2-minute 30-second game, the robot is 15 seconds autonomous and 2 minutes and 15 seconds teleoperated. At least that's what it's been in previous years. And so what we wanted to do was we really needed to up the challenge. First is as challenging already, but because we wanted it to be not just a 6-week event, but a year-long event, and not just for high school students, but for university students, we upped the ante by making the whole competition fully autonomous. So we're going to be building the same first robotics competition robots that other teams are going to be building, but they're not going to be driven by a human. They're going to be driven by software entirely. And so the whole, it expands the difficulty of FRC by incorporating modern engineering challenges. Even to nowadays, a lot of corporate projects and student design teams work on projects related to autonomy, like autonomous cars, autonomous drones, autonomous airplanes, tractors. There's a whole host of autonomy that's going on nowadays, and it's still a modern challenge. And so bringing it to FRC allows first alumni to not just focus on metal and electronics, but modern engineering challenges. And so the timeline of the event is we're going to be starting in kickoff just like their team, and we're going to be working for 6 to 8 months rather than 6 weeks. So we're going to be building until around July, August, September, and then we're going to be competing at off-season events. Because we are university students, it'd be really unfair for us to compete at real events, and so we decided to create partnerships with some off-season events that will let us participate in more of a exhibition style event. And so that while you're at university, we'll be building a real FRC robot and competing in real events that will hopefully have fun for not just university students, but for high school students who are there as well. We hope it's going to be a great novelty, not just for people who just look at it and be like, oh, there's no one driving that thing, but also a great learning opportunity for anyone who wants to learn more about autonomy. And so our current team count is at 50 students. We're continuing to grow. As it is our pilot year, so it's been much more focused on building the team rather than our actual engineering challenge, although we are really prepping for the actual challenge, and we're so excited to start building. We've been playing with autonomous sensors recently. We've gotten most of our purchases in due to some wonderful funding from sponsors across the university and the corporate world. And so we're really excited to undertake the challenge. And I personally am so excited to allow first alumni to continue to experience FRC while they're in university. Hopefully in the future, we hope that a lot of universities follow suit with our team and the initiatives happening at Waterloo, so that our events can remain staffed with volunteers, and so that FIRST alumni remain engaged while they're at university. And so that's our goal. That's what we're doing. And if you are a high school student who is, looking to where they're going to go when they graduate, then if staying involved in FIRST robotics once you've graduated is important to you, then I would highly recommend you come to the University of Waterloo to come and join our UW React student design team and help us build fully autonomous FIRST robots and have some great fun while you're doing it. So yeah,
we have a couple of questions. So I think we jump in right now with one of them. Just to be clear, so for those people who have not ever heard of Robot in 3 Days, it's not a team event. It's not an event for a current FRC veteran or rookie team. It's for students that have graduated and gone on to university, like Michael and the people that were with him. And I think it also does attract sometimes students who are at the university who are not on FRC teams but have heard about it and have gotten involved. But the other question that we have from Peter, who is the lead mentor of a rookie team in Brantford, is why not do exhibitions at real events?
And so there are two main challenges with us going to real events. The first one is time. So while we definitely could build a FIRST robotics competition robot in the time it takes to go to a real event, we think it's highly improbable that we would have the time and the resources. And we are still university students. We're not professional engineers who work for the big four companies working on autonomous vehicles. And so we don't think that we could create an autonomous FRC robot in 6 to 8 weeks. We think it would take us 6 to 8 months. So the first reason is time. We really need that extra time. And the second reason is that we don't just want to compete in a single match. We hope to compete throughout the event, perhaps in a separate category. We're talking with 2 off-season events right now about the best way to make sure that teams who are regular FRC teams can still enjoy a real event, but allow us to compete there as well. And so being at an off-season event allows us to have the best fluidity in what we do and make sure that the event is fun for not just this high school students, but also for the students on UW React, because again, we want to bring the FIRST robotics competition experience back to university students. Because we are still students and we really miss this opportunity that we had in high school.
So I have a couple of questions. You mentioned you built 2 robots last year and you're going to build 2 robots this year. Why 2 robots?
Well, so the main reason we wanted to build 2 robots, last year the idea was if we could build 2 robots and a few other teams could build 2 robots, then we could have enough Robot in 3 Days robots to have a small mini exhibition event. Unfortunately, it didn't work out like that, but that was one of the original ideas for doing 2 robots. And we continue to do 2 robots because it gives the most amount of people the opportunity to do Robot in 3 Days. For each robot, it's essentially it's a whole nother team. And so that's doubling the amount of people that can participate. If we had the money to do 3 robots, then I would be all for it. But again, we're trying to focus more on UW React now. And so having 2 robots gives us the opportunity to have more alumni participate in the event.
Okay. You mentioned that it was like a sort of becoming a hackathon, that there were going to be other activities, other FRC activities. What are some of those other activities? Do you have something you can talk about?
For sure. So these aren't going to be happening in this year's Ri3D. Some of the bigger ideas we have, there's going to be a few smaller ones. So we're going to be using Ri3D as a way to get people ready for UW React. So we're going to be using FRC control system components to make a smaller autonomous car. So we're going to be setting up a track and then using real technology on a much smaller scale to create an autonomous car. Again, it's a much smaller scale than a real autonomous car, but we think it's a great related activity that would prep people for the event. And then other things we wanted to do was use non-FRC related technology to complete the first challenge. The main issue with us actually using, the reason why we don't have 3 robots or 4 robots or 5 robots is that the FRC control system is more expensive than others because it has to be, safety regulated and a bunch of other things. So we would be using non-FRC related components to create robots that complete the challenge. These, of course, wouldn't be, broadcast to the world because, the still one of the goals of Ri3D is to produce, reliable and realistic prototypes for the world. And, using non-FRC control system components isn't exactly what you expect from a real FRC design. So although it's a great way to allow more people to do Ri3D. So amongst all that stuff, we're going to be using FRC components to do non-FRC stuff, and we're going to be using FRC component or non-FRC components to do FRC stuff. And we are also going to have more broad categories in the future and bring in more corporate sponsors to have a judging style event with teams and judges who will be able to build separate designs and build what they want to in 3 days, robotics related, because there are currently not that many robotics related hackathons in Ontario.
Do you have any estimate of what your autonomous robot that React is going to build might cost?
So if you cut out the whole FRC control system,
right,
then we've priced it at around $10,000 for the robot. Mm-hmm. And so that would include all of the autonomous sensors we need. So we're using depth cameras. So these are cameras that are kind of like the Xbox Kinect that was used in FRC one year, and you may have played with at home. So it's a camera that provides 3D vision. We're going to be using radar. So I guess actually something I forgot to mention about React is that we are still going to be completely first legal. We hope to follow every single FRC rule with the exception of one, which is bag day. But fortunately for us, that's going away. So now we are actually in 2020, we're going to be a fully first legal FRC team. And so the issue is that that means we have to follow the budget rules. So our robot has to cost $4,000 maximum. And so when I say $10,000, that includes the money we're using to evaluate different sensors over others. And unfortunately, on top of the $4,000 budget limit, there's also the $400 per item limit.
Right.
And the issue with that is that a lot of sensors used in autonomy are much more expensive than $400 a pop. One example is LiDAR, and there are no useful LiDAR components available for under $400. The best we can do is radar. So what we're going to be doing is using depth cameras, radar, RGB cameras. So these are cameras like the ones you have on your phone. We're going to be using IMUs and so essentially components that stuff like the NavX that give us acceleration and rotation, and so those are the sensors we're going to use. And then we're also going to be having a lot more onboard processors for doing all this extra math we need to do for the FRC robots. So that includes Jetsons for doing all of our processing and specific processors for the various cameras and things to take the data before it goes to the Jetson and then provide all that data back to the Rio.
Well, I like how you're talking about following the rules from first, only because then it allows that to be a discussion that hopefully we'll get back to the teams, because sometimes, especially newish teams, don't see the value in reading all the rules, but obviously there are lots of reasons why that's important. So I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that most of your team members are in place for this year?
Yep. So for Ri3D, we still have applications open. Um, that we're still selecting a few people. We're letting it run a little late because it's more of a spontaneous thing. As
Hmm.
far as React goes, because it's run like another student design team, we do a lot of our recruiting at the beginning of the term. And as school gets more into it, a lot
Hmm.
of students don't really look to join new things at the end of term. They're really looking to join things at the beginning of term. So a lot of our recruiting for the team is set in place. A lot of those students are first alumni. We have a few students who aren't first alumni, and we're excited to have them on board because it means that we have people who have never done first, know what it is, and now we have people who are going to be, volunteers and perhaps mentors in the future. And we're really glad we have them on board. But yeah, so we have most of our team set in place.
Well, it sounds pretty spectacular. I want to point out, because maybe we went over too quickly, that one of the big deals with this that applies to rookies and veterans is the whole prototyping thing that Michael talked about first. So, for example, a couple of years ago, robots had to first climb this rope, and there were all sorts of definitions of rope. And one of the things that came, the prototyping bit, was that different groups around mainly the United States at that time, tried different ropes based on the rules. And one of the ones that caught on, certainly in Ontario, was to add Velcro to strapping that met the rules. Where you could see it didn't, a lot of people thought, well, that'll never work. But when you see a prototype done in the second day and it's climbing, this 120-pound robot is flying up in the air because they use
Yeah.
Velcro. That's a big advantage to teams that are low resource, that really can't afford to do all that prototyping themselves. And it's good to see what other teams are doing as well. So the huge advantage is that rookies really, and veterans know this, rookies really should not be building their robot to be what it's going to look like at the end, right at the beginning. They should be taking a look at some of these Robot in 3 Days builds, because they're going to be online streaming all over the North America, especially the 2 or 3 groups that are going to do it in Ontario. So that's a huge advantage if you dedicate some students to doing that, and they'll enjoy that as well. So that's
Mhm.
a great feature of this whole idea.
Yeah. Robot in 3 Days is definitely something that we hope more people did. It's really growing in recent years, and there
Hmm.
has been a lot of discussion about whether or not it's growing too quickly and losing sight of what it used to be. But in my mind, there is no such thing as too much growth. The benefit of having more Ri3D teams, just like having more diversity in any field, is that you have more opinions to look at and you have more different designs. And as long as we have a good way to aggregate all that information,
All right.
that's something that we're really it's a big discussion in the world of FRC related to Robot in 3 Days, is how do we aggregate Robot in 3 Days information to make sure um, teams have the resources they need to look at Robot in 3 Days prototypes.
Right.
And so hopefully in the future, that's something that Robot in 3 Days teams will solidify and fix. But for now, Robot in 3 Days is continuing to grow really quickly. And in my opinion, I'm really glad about that, because it's always kind of fascinated me that there is nothing for first alumni in university to
Hmm.
continue to do FRC, because while we can mentor, the thing is that university and college is still you're still a student. We're still students who, while we have more independence, we still look for mentors and people to teach us. And having a team is a great way to join together. And I feel like alumni in university, while having university mentors is great, alumni in university, at least most that I know, really do much better when they're working on the robots themselves, because they have a lot of growing to do. And
Hmm.
once we've learned everything we can from university, then we have much stronger, much smarter, much more engaged mentors who go join FRC teams and help rookie teams and veteran teams alike, really push their limits and do the best they can do.
Well, once again, Michael, thank you for this, and good luck with your exams if you're still doing that right now.
Yeah, they
And
start tomorrow.
start tomorrow. Well, good luck with that. And we'll
Thank
certainly be
you.
following along. We'll be in touch as we go along and hope to see this robot as it progresses. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Um, I just wanted to mention a couple of things before we go. We're getting some questions about first choice. Just to quickly, it was part of Derek Murphy's Studica webinar a few weeks ago. Essentially, first choice is a location, as it says, powered by AndyMark, that lets you, if your team is secured, which means that you've arranged payment and all the Ontario teams are in that situation, where you can order these parts from AndyMark using credits that First provides to you. So you get credits twice. You have credits right now, and then you'll get more credits on January 5th when we have our kickoff. And those credits only last until I believe it's sometime in April. Now, a bunch of rookie teams have been contacting me saying, "Oh, I don't know what to buy." Those you have those credits, so they're not going to run out before you know what to buy. So there's no rush in going through and buying things right now. I'll send this webinar out so you can have this document anyway, so you can see what's in the details. But essentially, it just takes you to where First has a blog about it. So I can send you that link if you're interested in that. The one caution that we have about the first choice credits is here at the bottom where it says, remember, you have to pay for the shipping for these free items. So like as an example, you would not, even though they might have them, you would not want to buy a battery for your robot through that, because what's going to end up happening is you're going to have to pay the shipping for that, and you can get those batteries in Ontario. So that's maybe not the most judicious use of your credits, and you should take a look at that. And this gives you an opportunity then to talk to some veteran teams and say, what would you get if you were a rookie team? And again, you don't have to do this right now. You can wait until after when you see what the game is and then make a better, more informed decision. One team we were with today that's doing an FLL event tomorrow said that they had just submitted their priority list for their first set of credits. They're a 4-year-old team this year, and they know what they need because based on things that they've used in the past. And again, they're guessing because nobody really knows what the game is. But that's just something that you might want to keep in mind. But as always, if you do have any questions about this or anything else, you can contact me at this email address, and I would be happy to put you in touch with a veteran team that can help you or to provide you some information myself. And next week, we're going to have Kauthar, who is also a university student, but not at the University of Waterloo, who is originally from Windsor, who's going to talk to us a little bit about coding the FRC robot, and this coding will deal with Java. So join us then. If you do have any questions, please feel free to contact me. And we're getting down to the last few sane hours before we start our kickoff and start building our robots. So again, as always, please stay in touch and both contact me, and it's a good idea to find out who's going to your event and contact some of those teams. They'll be happy to work with you. They'll be happy to hear from you. So once again, thanks for joining us tonight, and look for this webinar and all our other webinars at the First Canada YouTube channel. Good night.